Welcome to Frame of Reference, informed, intelligent conversations about the issues and challenges facing everyone in today's world. In-depth interviews to help you expand and inform your frame of reference. Now here's your host, Raul Labreche.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of, what is this show called again? Oh yeah, Frame of Reference, Profiles in Leadership. I swear to you, sometimes I have forgotten that too. And it's one of those things where you have a moment where you just go, oh my God, I forgot the name of my own podcast. But I don't know. I guess call it sometimer's disease or something. Anyways, enough about me. I'm Raul Labreche, and my guest today is Dr. Heather Stone. And Heather Stone is one of the top functional medicine practitioners in the world. That's right, in the world. You heard it right here. She has over 20 years of clinical experience in private practice. And that's all I'm going to say about her, because Dr. Stone, first and foremost, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here today with me.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, and I am not going to do any more introducing of you because I made a New Year's resolution this year that I was going to stop introducing people from the words on a page and insist that my guests introduce themselves, because you know you better than I know you, and you would be much better at convincing people that you are you than I can be convincing them of the same thing. So, Dr. Stone, who are you?
Well, I am a functional medicine practitioner, and my mission is to change the face of healthcare. And I have a big focus on helping women, really to empower women to take back their health and to be their own advocate and not settle for all of the symptoms and diseases that we are essentially kind of pushed into accepting a life that is less than what we really could be experiencing.
You know, I find that such an interesting premise too from the get-go, honestly, because it's been my feeling, and I'm a man, so I may be way out of my league here, but it has been my feeling that women for far too long have been sort of discounted for the issues that they go on. And I think of my wife struggles with fibromyalgia. And, for years, I mean, that's been around, the symptomology for that had been around for decades, if not longer. They didn't really understand. I mean, I don't think even women understood this constellation of symptoms and what is this? But then to have it be discounted by medical professionals for so long, and just, women in general, I think oftentimes have been poo-pooed, especially when the medical industry was more dominated by men. I think that there was just an understanding or an implicit sort of, it's just a woman thing or whatever. And I applaud you first for taking the reins and getting into a field like that. But I also wonder how you kept from killing us for so long. So I really want to know that. How did you?
Well, we could certainly jump off there. I think that, we can definitely go down that rabbit hole. And I think that, that kind of is why I do what I do, is because, so many women in the traditional model that we have. Now, don't get me wrong, there's always a time and place for traditional medicine. Mm-hmm. But when we're dealing with chronic degenerative diseases, that is really where medicine fails, because they're trying to handle all of these symptoms and diseases with one drug after another that doesn't really resolve or look to understand the root cause of why we have these symptoms and diseases. But really, it's to override the body's physiology to essentially just shut down whatever symptom that is. And I think so many women get stuck in this place. And I mostly focus on women who have low thyroid and autoimmune conditions. And you can pretty much lump fibromyalgia right into that class, because it's frustrating because many of us don't necessarily have a diagnosable disease, or if we do, they put us on the medication, but that doesn't really resolve all the symptoms that we're struggling with. Mm-hmm. And so then it's like, oh, you have pain, we'll just take this painkiller. And then if it doesn't work, I don't know what else to do with you. Just live with it. You can't lose weight. Well, just go eat less and exercise more. And it gets way more involved than that. Or if you have depression or anxiety, just take these medications, and we'll continue to try to work with these medications. But it's almost like, we get looked at as hypochondriacs, and then we just keep getting one medication after another. And then it's like, oh, you can't sleep. Well, here's a sleeping pill. And it's like, oh, here comes this a lady again.
Right,
like,
right.
why can't she just deal with these symptoms?
Right,
and
right.
I think it's, it becomes really frustrating to be stuck in that model where you don't feel listened to. You don't feel like they believe what you're saying is true. And it's like, even in our society, not only doctors, but even spouses and significant others and family members are like, you're on the medication. Why can't you just get over it? And I think these symptoms become really
right. Why can't you? Yeah, right. Hey, come on. You got a pill.
I know it is. It's kind of surprising. I do make us every time I look to accept a patient into care, I always make their spouse or significant other join us for that visit while I go over and we're uncovering where all these underlying issues are coming from. Mm-hmm. And it is like 9 times out of 10. Thank you so much for making me be here, because I didn't understand why she was still feeling this way, even though she was on the medication, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And so really getting down to the root cause of why we are, feeling the way that we're feeling is so important, because the symptoms that the body is giving us is the way the body communicates with you to tell you that something is not right. And just to ignore it or shove it down or medicate it, those symptoms, what may go away, but they'll come back as something else. And the body is always trying to protect us and let us know, hey, I need some help here. Like something is not quite right. I think it's a great need for all people, but just for me in specifically, I work with women because I feel like we have the biggest circle of influence, and we're going to influence the other men in our lives as well to kind of help them get back on this track.
Yeah, and I've often thought it's not fair, because they're really, if we're going to talk about that sort of, you take a pill for it. It's like, well, why isn't there a pill for being a jerk? Here's an anti-jerk pill. Why aren't you not a jerk yet? You've been taking these for how long? It just would be, I think that'd be much more helpful to the world in general. So, well, I warned you ahead of time that we like to start this show, and, we already went down the way, but that's good. It's good. We've established a rapport, as we say. But to start out by talking a little bit about what I call my favorite things. And boy, if I had all kinds of money, I would pay Julie Andrews to do a special recording for that so we could just play that underneath as we launch into that part of the podcast. But I think I explained to you, it's a kind of a Rorschachtian thing. I say red, you say blue. I say favorite bird, you say peekaboo. Whatever. However it works, that's fine. There's no right or wrong answers. There's only... that one's difficult. So if you give me that answer, I will try to give you space to figure it out, but please come up with something, even if it's a lie. I don't care. So no one will know. So anyways, first question, I'm going to start off something easy. Favorite food? I hope.
Favorite food? Well, it's not really that easy, but for me, my favorite food is one that I can grow on my ranch. So there's a lot of different favorite foods, but if I can grow it, I'm going to love it.
Okay. So homegrown food is just generally it. Okay. Do you have a particular favorite vegetable or a favorite fruit, maybe? Narrow it down a little bit? My favorite vegetable is Brussels sprouts or Swiss chard. Brussels.
I know it might be kind of weird.
My mother would love you. So let me tell you. So she tried throughout her entire life to get me to eat Brussels sprouts. I'm like, no way. Am I eating that thing? No. So
That's funny. If it's on a menu, I will order it and I grow it and I can eat them at any time.
Boy, somebody's telling me that cooking them in butter is really tasty too, that they're the fried Brussels sprouts.
It's really tasty. Yeah. And you know what I found I was really surprised by? When you steam it, it completely brings out a different flavor. And then you can add all of your seasonings and maybe some butter or whatever kind of oil you want to, but it's really great.
Okay. Well, along those lines, how about a favorite fruit? As long as we talked about, fruits and vegetables, we got to have fruits represented.
Yeah. So. Well, let's see. My favorite fruit's probably blueberries. They have the highest antioxidants and they're pretty easy to grow.
Well, except people will come around and pick them all the time. If I lived near you, you'd have no blueberries at all growing because I would just be coming by going, yeah, I think I need blueberry pie tonight. Well, that looks about enough. And I might want one tomorrow, so I'll take some more. So how about, do you have a favorite movie?
Well, I am not a movie buff. Now,
Really?
you and my husband probably could really get along, but
See,
I am not.
Well,
a
you could go
movie
get
buff.
him quick if you want. Will he and I'll talk movies
Yeah.
while you, okay, that'd be fine.
I usually watch what he watches, but if there's any violence, I completely turn it off. But
Okay.
any kind of romantic comedy, I am up for. So
Okay.
romantic comedies, I'm good.
Rom-coms, my wife, I don't know, I'm a weepy male. I really am. I love rom-coms. I love storybook endings. That sort of thing. It's totally unrealistic most of the time. It's like, that would never happen, but it's just so fun, So I get it. I get it completely. I think what is it? The Vacation. Do you remember that movie? It's kind of a holiday, or The Holiday. That's what it's called.
Yes,
with Jude
I
Law.
do remember that.
Oh, that movie. Every time I see that, I love that end scene where all four of them are together with the little girls, and I'm like, this is so wonderful. Yeah. But I could watch the violence-packed ones too. I can go both ways. So tell your husband I won't just be weeping. We can watch the Rambo movies or whatever else.
There you go.
So how about, and not your one you've written, okay? But do you have a favorite book?
Oh, I have a lot of favorite books, but right now one of my favorite one is Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. But I am always reading self-help, development books. That I have stopped reading anything for like nonfiction. Fiction books a long time ago. It's for me right now. It's all about self-help. Well, it has been for the last 25 years.
Yep. I find my fiction is all in movies, and although I do watch a lot of documentaries too, I'm really quite boring that way. But I'm always looking for things. Although lately I'm kind of concerned about myself. I've been watching a lot of true crime movies lately, and it's just like I think my wife is starting to wonder, what are you thinking about? So it's like, no, I'm serious. I just love to see how these guys get caught. It's so much fun. So, but anyways, how about, do you have a favorite kind of music?
I do. I'm from Texas, so my favorite music is country music.
Amazing. Oh my God. How can that be? So any particular artist that you want to share with people?
Right now, I'm loving Zach Brown. So Zach Brown is my favorite. But I also will tell you that whenever I'm working in my garden, I always listen to jazz or classical because it actually helps your plants grow exponentially better. So I always have jazz or classical music in the garden. I
had read that. I've always thought that like some plants should wear berets, and just go kind of do this sort of thing. If they had fingers and thumbs, they could just go, yeah, man. All right, man. So, or classical, you can give them little batons or something. I think that would be kind of fun to watch plants. You could see that little shop of horrors, the big Venus flytrap, instead of, the Venus flytrap could have that sort of thing going on. Anyways, I'm with you on that. I had a roommate who was a jazz player when I was in graduate school and undergraduate school, so I didn't even know there was such a thing as applied saxophone. So he has a master's degree in applied saxophone, which I thought was a little bit of a cop-out, but it was his money. So
that's interesting. I don't know a lot about music, but I do know that the research shows that jazz and classical, it mocks the bird singing and chirping in the morning at sunrise. So that's when I try to play.
Okay, there you go. Makes sense. I would wonder if they'll remember that if they take things out into space or Mars. They'll have to make sure they have a good jazz library and a good classical library on MP3 so they can handle all that.
There you go. Or some birds that could live there.
Right. There you go. There you go. How about a favorite place to go to when you need to just chill?
I go a couple of places. If I want to go chill, I love to go to the beach or to Italy. But if it's like on a daily basis, I go hang out in my chicken coop.
Your chickens?
My chickens are amazing, and I have some turkeys, and they are just so calming to me. I don't even love chickens, and all of a sudden now I'm the chicken lady, and I've got over 80 chickens and like 7 turkeys.
So your husband comes home and he says, where? Oh, she's with the chickens.
Yeah,
okay, all right.
He knows.
Okay.
He knows
Gotcha. All right, that makes sense. So yeah, I don't have chickens. My dad had chickens when he was growing, but they were for food. So that I don't know. He talks about that, and I'm like, Dad, I could not do that. He said, well, you want to eat. So I'm like, yeah, but when you're 4, I mean, come on. So last question. How about do you have a favorite? I guess I'll take it this way. When you think about your life and, as you're living through, is there a favorite way that you would like to be remembered, or a favorite kind of theme that you would like your life to be about, so that when people come by and, look at your epitaph or whatnot, they think, oh yeah, there's Dr. Stone. Boy, she was really all about fill in the blank.
Yeah, and I think about this often. And, my mission is to change the face of healthcare and to really impact as many women as I possibly can with education and empowerment. And that is kind of how I wake up every day and how I plan my year, and what I'm really doing on a daily basis is to really, contemplate, is this helping as many women as I possibly can?
Sure.
And so that's kind of like how I live my life daily.
So, excellent transition and segue. Here we go. This exit stage left and enter into the house right. How did this journey happen for you? So I know one of the first questions you had was that you had this sort of inspired practice in healthcare and it became kind of centered around realizing that there was a significant amount of suffering that you were linking more and more to low thyroid and Hashimoto's disease. So how did that correlation happen? How did you realize that, there's something here where I really need to dig into deeper and figure more out, because there's a lot going on here that people are just kind of brushing over?
Yeah. So, it starts with my own story and my own journey. I was really struggling with weight, and I was fatigued, and, my hormones really out of balance. And, I go to doctors and they would just kind of brush me off and say, nothing's wrong with you. And, oh, by the way, you're probably not going to be able to have kids naturally. You'll need fertility treatment, and, just go deal with it. Right. There was no solution. And I thought to myself, this was early on, and I was in pre-med at the time in undergrad. And I'm like, I was trying to figure out what kind of doctor I wanted to be. And, this is a blessing, and I'm always grateful for the experience that I had, because it allowed me to say, you know what, my life is not going to be that way. Like, I have a lot to do, and I am supposed to be going to school and getting a doctorate and blah, blah, blah. I can't be tired and dealing with life this way. So I said, I have to figure this out. And so as I was figuring it out, I'm like, oh my gosh, there are millions of women who have the same experience, but they don't know that they could do something about it. And they are just listening to the doctors who are supposed to be helping them. And essentially, they're just told that they have to live with these symptoms. So once I figured it out for myself, I lost about 50 pounds, my symptoms.
Oh, you're breaking up. Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can. It just all of a sudden it went dead, and then you got little pieces of words. And so you were just talking about, having the realization that how doctors were treating things wasn't working very well. I think it was when it started picking up.
And so, what I was saying is I had lost 50 pounds. I got all of my hormones back on track. I had great energy. My brain was functioning well. I think I said I had 2 healthy boys. Now they're 20 in like 2 days. One is 20 and one's 17. So, it's been, quite the journey from when I first started this. But as I started to realize that there were literally millions of women who were struggling, and they were labeled with low thyroid, or they had an underlying autoimmune condition that was causing low thyroid that was never even checked, that these women really needed so much help. And, that's kind of like the start of it, because when they get diagnosed with low thyroid or Hashimoto's, they have loads of all the other symptoms, right? Like they can't lose weight, they have low energy, they may have fibromyalgia and muscle pain and joint pain and anxiety and depression and and their hair's falling out. So like the reason they have so many symptoms is because the thyroid is one of the only hormones, if not the only hormone, that has a receptor site on every single cell in their body from head to toe. And so, a lot of times they're told just to go take your thyroid medication. And literally last month, I don't know when this is going to be published, but in January, it was Thyroid Awareness Month. And I walked through the airport as I was traveling, and there was a magazine dedicated to low thyroid. I'm like, oh, this ought to be good. Let me buy it and just let me see what they're still writing about 20 years later. And then I go to Whole Foods on my way home, and there's another one. I'm like, let me buy this and see what. Same thing. Different. I mean, it's the same story, the same information. Here we are 20, 30 years, later, the information has not changed in the traditional mainstream. It's take your medication. You should feel good in a couple of weeks, and then, go lose weight and exercise, eat less. And that is still the solution.
I don't know why it is. I guess because I don't have a medical degree, but to me, treating the symptoms of something is like putting more and more oil in your car without ever figuring out that you've got a gasket that's blown here, and you're just going to keep pouring oil into that until you take the head off and put a new gasket on. And that sort of thing just doesn't seem to, or you're ingesting dirt through your carburetor right into the top of your cylinders. So, but if you keep putting oil in, it'll kind of mix in with it well enough that, you'll still get some firing out of those pistons for a while. Can't really tell you how long, but, that's kind of been our approach to the human body for so long. Instead of just figuring out what is the cause of this thing, what is the root cause, and let's deal with the cause. Like jerkiness. I mean, if we could figure out what the cause of jerkiness is, think of what the world would look like, people. So, so how did you figure out the cause, and what is the difference between the way that you're dealing with it and how traditional medicine has dealt with it?
Yeah, and I think it is important to know that the traditional medicine model is set up to do diagnosis, drug therapy, or surgery, right? So it's like, how can we find the diagnosis? And the diagnosis is essentially just the name of the disease. And then we're going to put together the medication that goes with the name of the disease, or we cut it out, right? So you cut it out, drug it out, or burn it out is essentially how the medical model is set up. And like I said, in some instances, that's good, especially when you have an emergency. But when we're dealing with chronic disease, that doesn't really work. And to be quite honest with you, if you find the root cause of all disease and you start reversing these disease processes, it doesn't make the pharmaceutical companies any money. So they want you to be on drugs for the rest of your life. The best thing they could find is a forever drug, right? Kind of like a statin or high cholesterol or thyroid medication, or, now they're talking about Ozempic as a new drug to help people lose weight. It's a diabetic drug, but it's a forever drug, because as soon as you get off of it, you're going to gain all the weight back. And, it essentially causes stomach paralysis. So that's how the drug works. And so then you're going to be taking lots of more drugs on top of that. And it's crazy because when you get off the drug, it doesn't fix the stomach paralysis. It just stays there. So
and your stomach goes, that I can see that being a real problem. Yeah.
It's a problem. But so for me, I don't know why I decided to go down this road. I don't know what it was. I think it was truly just my calling to say, okay, I tried all the things. I tried weight loss drugs. I tried every diet known to man. I tried all of those things and they didn't work. So I was like, okay, what makes the most common sense to me is to figure out what is causing this. If somebody would just tell me what was causing it, then I could find a solution and I will do it. Right. It wasn't about the doing it. It was about finding the right solution. So the more that I was searching, the more that I'm trained as a chiropractor, and in chiropractic school, the philosophy of chiropractic is to always find the root cause. Now, a lot of chiropractors stop at the spine. Instead, for me, for some reason, I'm like, okay, well, why do we have subluxation or misalignments in the spine? Like, what's causing that? Shouldn't just like happen.
Right.
So it's emotional, chemical, and physical. So that's what is the cause of all underlying imbalances and all diseases. You have to look at those, three aspects to everything. And so I was just digging and digging until I'm like, oh, this is how the body works. And if we continue to understand the physiology, the biochemistry, we understand how the body works, we can work with the body to help it overcome some of these imbalances, because the body was born to heal. Like you're a self-healing organism. Sometimes we have too many toxins or we have burdens that we put on the body that it's not meant to be able to overcome. So sometimes we have to remove that interference, and then the body can start to heal. But that requires us doing testing and having an inquisition as to, well, why? Like almost like that 3-year-old, in the back seat that's always asking why. A good doctor will always ask why until we get down to the root cause. And then once you start to work with the body can start to heal.
So you talk about that. You have a concept of the 7 pillars of thyroid transformation, and there's a blueprint there. Can you talk about those 7 pillars? Because it sounds like that's kind of at the root or the foundation, if you will, of all of this thinking and practice. Is it not?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you can really apply this blueprint to any health condition, right? And I call it my thyroid transformation blueprint because I work with thyroid patients, but just think of it in your overall general health as well. So the first pillar is that you have to have a constant pursuit of your goals. So you have to know like what it is that you're trying to achieve and what it is that you're working on, right? And then the second thing is that you have to have comprehensive testing. So this is really, really important. What most people don't understand is when you go to your doctor, they mostly are running like a CBC. They'll run a small chem panel. They may run your cholesterol. That's probably about it, right? And if they are worried about you having a blood sugar problem, they may run your A1C so they can see if you have diabetes, but it's very limited testing that most people get when they go to the doctor. Now, comprehensive testing, let me back up a little bit. When you do testing from your traditional doctor, like your yearly physical or whatever, they're just screening for diseases, right? Like, is there anything that they're going to die from tomorrow or anything that I could give them a quick medication for at this stage in their life, right? Like, Is it high blood pressure, high blood sugar, a statin drug? Like, those are kind of the main things. They're going to rule out any major infection and off you go. Unless you're having some major symptom, that's pretty much all they're going to check. But if we step back and say, okay, I'm not really just looking for a disease, but I'm looking to understand where the dysfunction is. Okay. I'm looking to understand where is this symptom coming from. And so like, instead of just running a TSH, that's typically what gets run if you think you have a thyroid problem. Okay. Well, there's actually 12 different thyroid markers in a full thyroid panel, and usually only one of those gets run. Right. So also, if you're looking for dysglycemia, which is an imbalance in your blood sugar, which is the number one cause for why people can't lose weight, there's more than 12 markers in a full panel where we're looking for dysglycemia, and usually only 2 get run. But the reason that they only run so little is because they're just looking for a disease diagnosis, but you've got to really dig much deeper. And then the third pillar is comprehensive analysis, right? So I'm not just looking for the name of the disease, but I'm looking for why do you have the disease if there is one? Or if there's no disease, why do you have the symptom? So you have to really be able to analyze not just from a disease state, but from a functional model, because there are actually optimal ranges versus disease ranges that we're looking at when you go to the lab. That makes sense. Those lab ranges are really wide, and they're there because if you're way outside of those lab ranges, then that indicates that you have like a major disease that needs to be handled. But there's actually optimal ranges where we are supposed to be functioning optimally. So remember, the traditional healthcare model is not for optimal function, it's for to manage diseases.
Right.
And so if we want to be optimally functioning, which I think most of us do want to do that, but we don't realize that we're not really they're not looking to evaluate, are you optimally functioning or are you about to die?
Right.
So, you have to really analyze it from an optimal state. Of course, if that's the goal that you want, right? And then, with that being said, the fourth pillar is customized care. Okay. So just because you have a label of a disease, you're going to have unique imbalances for why you have that disease or why you have those symptoms. And so each person has to be treated as an individual, and care has to be customized based on that individual person.
Okay.
Right. And then the fifth pillar is that you need a coach who's been there, done that, helped thousands of patients so that you can get from A to B in the shortest amount of time. You don't have to spend 20 years like I've been in this field, but you could spend 20 years trying to figure it out, but you don't have to. And then the other part of that coach is you also need to be coachable. So you have to actually implement.
Little problem, yeah.
Coachable.
Yeah. I'm a man. We don't listen. I'm sorry. It's just the way we are.
Right.
Right.
That is why I have that fifth pillar in there, and that's the other caveat to that being coachable. Yeah. And the other thing is true is because we have so much information that we did not have 20 years ago, right? There was no Dr. Google. When I was learning, we literally read textbooks, which we don't have to read. I remember those anymore.
Page things.
My kids are like, when my kids would bring home their homework, I'd be like, all right, where's your textbook? Yeah. Mom, we don't have textbooks.
Chromebook, like, Mom. Chromebook, come on. So
I'm like, could you just give me your math book so I can see how they did the problem and I can teach you how to do it? They're like, no, you just Google it. Okay.
Here's a link.
God is the textbook.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So anyway, with Dr. Google these days, there's a lot that we can have, like a lot of information that we have and what we've tried. And so you do have to be in a place where you're coachable to actually work through the process to helping your body get better. And then pillar number 6 is that you have to retest. So it's not good enough just to test once. You've got to to make sure that you're moving in the right direction, and then of course recustomize care as you work through the process is pillar 7.
Sure. Okay. And it's interesting because it sounds to me, even as you're describing something which is eminently practical and eminently sensible in terms of a holistic and a really even a scientific manner, right? I mean, we're talking about trying to understand a very intricate system. I mean, human beings are not just, let's throw some chemicals together and see what happens. We are infinitely wondrous and incredible by design, I believe. So when you talk about that, I go, okay, that makes sense. What strikes me though is that our entire system is set up to make that not possible. We are completely, our healthcare system is not designed at all. When you talk about running a test that would identify, all 12 types of, sugar issues that could be going on in our systems. I mean, some lab tech somewhere is going to go, I never run that test. What are you talking about? Not to mention some administrator somewhere is going to go, are you kidding me? That costs $6,000 to run that test. We're going to just run the $200 test, okay? Because we get those on sale at Walmart, and they're, that one you're talking about, you can't even get that except from, some lab in Germany, for God's sakes. So how do you?
Well, I think it's really important to note here is you're right. They don't run all of those tests because first of all, it's way too expensive. But second of all, the imbalances that we are uncovering that's happening, it doesn't really change treatment. So in traditional medicine, like let's just say thyroid, when they look in their toolbox, they have thyroid hormones. It doesn't really matter if it's an underconversion issue or an autoimmune condition, or, they can't clear these hormones through the liver, or maybe they have a gallbladder. None of that matters. because it doesn't change the treatment. So like when they look in their bag, it's like thyroid medication or thyroid hormones. And so it's just a waste of money to figure out all the underlying intricacies because they don't address that. Same with dysglycemia or blood sugar issues, right? So until you have diabetes, they're going to tell you to go lose weight and exercise, right? Once you get prediabetes and diabetes, then you go to their toolbox and you've got metformin and a statin and a high blood pressure medication. That's the diabetic cocktail. All those other markers that I'm looking at for, like, let's say variability, where your blood sugar swings all over the place, or where you have insulin resistance but not yet diagnosed with prediabetes or diabetes. They don't really care about that. They just say, go lose weight and exercise. And maybe that's causing a sleeping issue, but they just would give you a sleeping pill. You don't need to run all of those labs because that's not the way that the model is set up. And they would lose money because it costs too much, but then they would actually get people better. So then it's like that they're not going there.
Well, it strikes me that I would think a lot of medical professionals aren't even, quite honestly, competent to evaluate the results of a thyroid panel that would show you all the markers that, and the indications from each of those markers, that they would be looking at that and going, I only took second year Spanish and that looks to me like Don Quixote in the original language. I don't think so. So, I mean. Yeah,
they are not trained that way because that's not how the system is set up. And it's not like, your individual practitioner is like trying to do something harmful. It's just the way that the system is set up and how they've been trained. I have doctors of my patients, because I co-treat obviously with like a traditional doctor and then us, and they'll look at the labs and they'll say, I do not know how to analyze these. Just, you keep working with Dr. Stone and keep doing what you need to be doing because you look amazing and you're doing great. And we'll just keep prescribing the drugs that you need. So, most doctors they're not trained in a functional model. And it is really frustrating for patients who are trying to get that service from their doctors who aren't trained in that model. And that's where the frustration comes. But you need a team of doctors on working with you and your health, because you wouldn't expect one doctor to do everything, right? So it's important to have a team of doctors to really work to give you the best care.
Yeah, I think of in my theater background, you don't have. We were just visiting a theater actually near Madison here called Spring Green, the American Players Theater, and it was interesting to see people who had no experience whatsoever with that, because they find out that there's a production manager. Now, is there a production manager? But there's a scene design manager, and there's a technical manager, and there's a manager for sound design and sound engineering, and for video engineering wherever that's needed and things. And there's acting coaches, and so there's all of these staff members that are there to put on a play. And, it strikes me that there are a lot of analogies from that to, each of us are our own play. Each of us are our own central character. And you need not only a director, which I think ultimately has to be us, right? But there's a central coach there that is going to help, get you to the place you need to do in order to be ready for, the performance of your life, which comes down to, right? So is there what do you think you've been able to, and let me step back. You talk about there being 3 false beliefs that women are led to believe that keep them from really returning and believing that they can return to the image that they have of themselves, that they could be, they have been, they want to be. What are the things that get in the way of doing that?
Okay, so I love talking about this topic. There is a rule called the 80-20 rule.
Yep.
And the 80% is what moves the needle the most, but is what we are all focused on the least. And the 20% is the diet, the supplement, the exercise, the pills, like all the things that we do that we think really moves the needle. But the 80% is what's really going on with us in our subconscious mind, our mindset, like, how we carry around false beliefs and what we think is possible. The 3 main false beliefs that most women have: one is I am not enough. The second one is I am different. And the third one is it's not available to me. All right. So I am not enough is really most people deal with this false belief. Okay. So it comes in form of, I will be enough when I have enough education, when I have this degree. That's kind of the first thing, especially doctors or, education people. We are enough when we have these letters behind our name. The other thing that really plays in is that it's not available to me is when you think that your genetics are essentially like it is essentially what is going to happen to you, right? So we know that with genetics, like if you have diabetes in your family and you think the reason I have diabetes is because it's genetic, like you have no influence over that. It's kind of like a death sentence, right? Or everybody died of cancer, I'm going to die of cancer. But what we know is that with the study of epigenetics, that our genes turn on and turn off based on the environment that they're exposed to. And so we have so much control over gene expression. And so if you can make the body healthy, you can also make the body sick. And so it's very, very important that we realize that just because it's in our gene line, or, a lot of patients will say, well, my mom gained weight when she went through menopause, so I gained weight when I went through menopause, or I'm going to gain weight when I go, because they automatically think that because it's in their gene line or it happened to their mom or their grandmother, it's automatically going to happen to them.
Sure.
So they kind of set up their life to believe that that's what's going to happen. And of course, that's what's going to happen. Right. The other thing is like, I'm different. So like someone listening to this, they might say, well, Dr. Heather lost weight and she was able to have kids because maybe she started younger. So that means like I'm different than her. Like I can't get those results because I'm different. But in reality, yes, each of us has our own unique gifts that we bring to this world. But we really are the same, meaning like we have the same basic needs. And, we essentially, our physiology pretty much works equally. And so you can have whatever it is that you want, if, whatever goal it is that you're trying to achieve, you can achieve that, but you have to really get rid of some of these false beliefs. And I will say that if you're struggling in any place in your life, whether it's financial, health, relationships, spiritual, there is always a false belief that is keeping you stuck where you are or not allowing you to achieve those goals.
Yeah. I keep thinking too, though, that because the system is so diametrically opposed to wellness, which it sounds weird to say, but the system really is opposed to wellness because wellness is just sort of it's like, don't look at that man behind the curtain. So that it seems to me the part of the issue I struggle with, not only is it sort of fighting that whole, wave of thought or the thought structure that says, oh, this is all wacky. This is wacky, chiropractic, that's just wackiness. But even if you get past that, because I'm a theater person, I go, yeah, come on. There's always another side to the story, right? It's not 16 different sides to the story. So don't tell me that's wacky. It just means you don't understand it or you'd rather stay ignorant. So I get it. Go right ahead, do that, but that's not for me. But the thing that I can't get past is it's always strikes me that it's also economically difficult. Because it goes against the system, that the ways and the means of fighting it in a way that is effective is difficult to do, because to have someone that's an alternative care or a foundational, fundamental, functional practitioner, usually that's not in the healthcare plan, right? It's not in the HMO. So what do you suggest to people that they really want to do that, but they just don't have the financial, the well-being or whatever you want to call it, the resources to be able to really get at this? They can't afford a coach, but they'd like to at least change their lifestyle and figure out the stuff that they need to figure out to make some steps forward.
Yeah. And I also think that is a false belief that most people can't afford it. Okay. Because most people can afford it. I've worked with several patients that are on food stamps, but your health has to be your number one priority. And that's really where that starts to shake. I mean, tell me the lines at Starbucks. Starbucks is the lines are out the door through onto the street. And truly, if we would stop thinking that the medical system or our insurance is taking care of our health, because really it's just keeping you from dying as long as they possibly can. It's not to optimize your health. So if you thought for a moment that you're increasing your food bill, like at the grocery store, if you buy organic food, it's going to cost more money. But what if we looked at that as an investment? Because I can assure you that if you invested in your health early on, that it is going to pay you exponentially in the future, because you're not going to be managing those disease processes. Do you realize that it costs people out of pocket, outside of insurance, over $7,000 a year when they get diagnosed with diabetes for the rest of their life? So if you would just invest in your health and prevent diabetes, you aren't going to be dealing with diabetes. You're not going to be dealing with amputations. And that is just the financial aspect. We're not even talking about quality of life.
Sure.
So there is a way that if you shifted your mindset and your health was your number one priority, you probably would shift your budget a little bit. But I get stuck in this too. I literally pay $1,500 a month for health insurance that I don't use. I've never even used it. And even when I had to use it, they deny everything that I'm like, okay, I don't even know why I'm paying $1,500 a month. This is the biggest joke I've ever seen. They don't cover anything if I ever use it, and I don't even use it. And so I get it, because it's frustrating. And we think, well, I'm paying $1,500 a month. This should cover when I need to go to a functional doctor. It should cover to keep me healthy, but that's not the game they're playing. It's a different game that they're playing that we don't realize. But I just challenge you to shift your mindset, because if your health became your number one priority and you were, your budget was tight, maybe you would get rid of Netflix. Oh my gosh. Maybe you would stop going.
Are you a communist? I mean, come on. That's crazy talk.
I know. Maybe you would grow your own food. I'll tell you, I was so proud of myself. I used to live in Colorado, and if you know Colorado, the growing season is pretty short, especially Texas. It's literally year round. But in Colorado, you have a couple of great months for a growing season. But the first year that I planted a garden there, my goal was to not spend a dime on vegetables for the whole growing season. And I did it. So for a family of 4, the only thing I bought at the grocery store was, good organic animal protein. And then I pretty much used everything from my garden, and my grocery bill was so small. So you could do that, but see what I mean? Your health has to be your number one priority.
Yeah, that sounds hard. So
it does sound hard, but I can tell you it's worth it. Nothing worth it was ever easy.
No, that is very, very true. Well, and it really ends up being kind of you're right. Life is all about choices, right? I can choose that I want to divert myself from reality and choose Netflix, or I can immerse myself in reality and embrace wellness and look at ways to just do, even if it's moving the needle slightly. It strikes me that, you don't lose, weight 100 pounds at a time. You lose it pound by pound by pound, right? By making better choices throughout the day, by taking those better choices and carrying them into the next day and the next day. So
I always talk about, instead of just trying to do 100% or nothing, like what if you just started with 2%?
Right.
What if you just started with 2% every day or every month, and then at the end of the year, you're like 50% there. Right. Way better than 100% or nothing.
Right. Makes complete sense. Folks, my guest today has been Dr. Heather Stone. I cannot believe it's already an hour. It's been 56 minutes or something like that. And I'm like, are we in a time-space anomaly here, or what the heck happened? Dr. Stone, please, at some point, I hope we can talk again, because we got through, like, I think 1.5 questions or something out of your 11 that you have. And even that was, I kind of, jumped around a little bit. But anyways, if you would join me some other time, because Dr. Stone is one of the top functional medicine doctors in the world. And as we've been talking about, she has over 20 years of clinical experience in private practice. She is there, I believe, one of the things I've seen from talking with you is you are there to help people. Your whole life's journey is about helping people. And you have a specialty in, helping women that have been told a bunch of lies, not only personally, but have been living them and trying to help them into a world where they actually do take control of things. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think that men could use this information too, if they were willing to listen. So it doesn't seem gender specific to me as much as it is just, thinking persistent. So
exactly.
But, yeah. So thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate our conversation. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Did you have any place you want to send people to find out more about this topic and the things that you're talking about?
Yeah, people can go to women. Okay. I do like men, so I don't have an issue with men.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying. I mean, it's about time we got our just comeuppance. I think. I don't know.
I have 2 sons and a husband, so I do like men.
Okay.
But this group is women specific, and it is on Facebook, and there's over 24,000 women here, and it's called Happy, Healthy, and Lean, Women Overcoming Low Thyroid. So if they will go search that in Facebook, that's kind of how they can get hooked into the information.
Okay. And I'm sorry, you kind of broke up a little bit there. What is the name of the Facebook group again?
It's Happy, Healthy, and Lean.
Okay. Happy, Healthy, and Lean. So happy, healthy, and lean. Yes. Happy, healthy, and lean. Okay. Got that? Happy, healthy, and lean. All right. So, Dr. Stone, thank you so much for joining us, for being with us on Frame of Reference. And I hope you stay happy, healthy, and lean. Does that work?
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for being here. Absolutely.
Take care.